Welcome to the True Brewer Stew podcast. Every other Sunday, we'll release an episode of the podcast featuring an interview with a business owner in the food industry. From restaurants, to breweries, to bakeries, and everything in between. We ask them about their journey and the process of becoming a successful business owner in hopes of helping others to do the same. I'm Mike Curtin, and the podcast starts now. Welcome to the True Brewer Stew podcast. My name is Mike Curtin. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so you never miss another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. All links to those and podcast platforms can be found on truebrewerstew.com. Before I continue, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed and followed the podcast since I started in September of 2019. And a special thank you to everyone who's taken time out of their schedule to be on the podcast. I truly appreciate it. Due to my love of craft beer, moving forward, I will only be interviewing brewery owners and workers. To reflect this change, True Brewer Stew will now be called the Brew World Order Podcast. So stay tuned for that, and I look forward to you continuing to be a loyal listener. Thank you. And thank you for joining us for episode number 19 of True Brewer Stew. Today I sit down with owners Laurie and Jonathan Porter of Smog Brewing Company in Torrance, California. Jonathan and Laurie tell me how they are coping with the current COVID situation and how owning a big business doesn't mean you can't give back to the environment or your community. So here it is, episode number 19. I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, I'm Mike Curtin. This is True Brewer Stew, and today I'm with Jonathan and Laurie Porter of Smog Brewing Company. Jonathan was brewing since 2006 and was brewing at Tustin Brewing in 2008 in Tustin, California. He had a true passion for brewing. Jonathan and Laurie founded Smog Brewing in 2011 and began brewing out of Tustin. Not long after, they moved into their own facility in Torrance, California in 2013. 2017, they expanded to Container Park in Long Beach, California. And finally, in 2019, they opened a second taproom location in Torrance known as Smog City West. Jonathan and Laurie, thank you for being with me.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
We're making it work.
Making it work. Great. So,
holding it together.
Right. The first question I've been asking people, and I think it's the big one. I know a lot of breweries are doing delivery and pickup. How have you been dealing with the whole COVID situation with your business, and how big of an impact has it been on the both of you?
Well, I mean, the one of the biggest things that I'm trying to get people to understand is that a lot of small breweries are either taproom focused or, like us, heavily draft focused, right?
Right.
So, when we're 80% beer and kegs going out to bars and restaurants, as soon as those orders get put into place where bars and restaurants are closed, we've lost 80% of our volume business.
It happened kind of overnight, we could see there were restrictions coming into place, but the actual safer at home was not entirely a surprise, but there was no warning. So by the time we got that call, we already had beer in tanks for 2 weeks. So There was this, instant standstill where everything ground to a halt. And then we had to say, like, what are we going to do with this product and how are we going to move forward from here?
And so we've had to adapt.
We've done a ton of, it's a new business. We're running an entirely new business. We've had brewery Smog City for 9 years now, and in the course of 4 weeks, we've had to reinvent ourselves. It's been really challenging and very intense, and we have shifted a lot of our attention to go pickups in our 3 tap rooms. We managed to get online delivery orders up and running in 1 day.
Right.
We just launched California state delivery, or state sales, and expanded delivery options for LA. We're finding that, in this crisis, people still want the comforts that they were used to before, and maybe even more so. It's
right,
a time in which there's a lot of insecurity and a lot of imbalance, and they're just seeking that thing that they can just sort of lose themselves in for a minute, right? And craft beer, luckily, is part of that.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that.
Or what I've also heard is they're stuck at home with their kids all day and they just need to drink.
Right. Well, yeah, just being open about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then also looking at our production side, like Porter mentioned, we went from 80% draft to 0% draft with beer in tanks ready to hit the market. So we've had to make some big changes internally in terms of how we get beer out of the facility. We had ordered a canning line in December, and it arrived on Monday. So now we're like
a week ago.
Okay,
right.
Brand new package, brand new processes. Let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge investment, and we had commitments from wholesalers
Disney,
for a lot of product, and those have largely evaporated. So we're trying to take that new package format and try and turn it into a revenue generator.
Right, absolutely. When starting Smog City, right, you were brewing out of Tustin. Now you have multiple locations. Can you tell us about that journey and how you pretty much went from like 3 locations in 6 years? How much changed over that time?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a really sort of like long story. And to sort of keep it short, I basically got into the brewing industry because of my passion for brewing.
Right.
Started as a home brewer, and but even before that, I always knew that I wanted to like work for myself. I wanted to be my own boss.
Right.
So the goal was always to get to a high position where I was, learning but also managing the process and also, managing other people. And it was great to be able to learn, like a lot of small business owners, you learn how to do that on other people's dime, basically.
Right.
And so running a brewery from grain to glass with a lot of responsibility, prepared us to do the same thing with our own business. The complicated part came when we were doing distribution plus retail, and then more retail locations. And then all of a sudden we had 25 employees, and we were learning how to do like leadership and, management on a higher level, and evaluating profit and loss statements, and, all those things that you don't get to experience until you actually run a business of a certain size and complexity.
Right. So out of all those things that came with that, what do you think's the one that you never thought you were going to have to deal with?
Man, you know what? I think the hardest part is when you find a team member that you have. We try to interview as best we can. You find a team member that is just not good for the team,
right? And
you got to let them go. You feel like you have failed them, and I always said like, no, I'm such a good trainer. I'm such a good brewer. Like they will learn from me and they'll be the best, just like me. And then you feel terrible when it's like clear that a person just is not working out.
Yeah, right.
And I thought I would have to like let people go,
Yeah.
For performance reasons. So I think that's one of the hardest things, and something I never really anticipated having to do. And if I did, I was like, oh, it won't be that hard. They'll know, right?
Right. Yeah, it's tough being people's like livelihoods and having to let them go and whatnot. So
yeah, you feel really invested in all of your employees, no matter what their performance level is. And in craft beer especially, you form these like families or teams, and you feel like you're really like in it together. You've locked arms and you're fighting the good fight together. And then as you grow, the level of experience that is required of your employees goes up too. And sometimes they can't do those things, as you become a bigger and bigger company, they get more complex and more sophisticated. It used to be a bunch of like high fives in a little room where we all sat together, and now it's a complicated machine that we've got to keep running.
Right. So I know Smog City is big on like giving back to the community and environment. Can you give me some insight into how you go about doing that?
Yeah. So about 2017, Porter and I were talking about our business, talking about what really defines us, how to differentiate ourselves in the market. What are the things that when people talk about Smog City, we want to resonate with our customers?
And what do we personally care about that we can imbue into our business and into our community?
Exactly. And so, there were 85 breweries in LA at the time, and we were looking around trying to say, like, what is it that nobody else is doing that we feel very strongly about? And both of us had just read Yvon Chouinard's Let My People Go Surfing.
Okay.
And that was a big inspiration. Yvon Chouinard was the founder of Patagonia, And then afterward, founder of 1% for the Planet. So reading that book, we said, like, man, this is a way to really allow your business to have not just a fiscal impact on its community, but a social responsibility impact. And so we got together and talked about it and decided to join the 1% for the Planet partnership, which says that Smog City donates 1% of our gross revenue to environmental causes. And then we took that responsibility and that commitment, and we focused entirely on environmental foundations and organizations that are impacting the consumer or the customers, that are supporting and protecting Smog City's growth and success. So it's been this kind of like, it's almost like this beautiful ecosystem, right? Like customers come in, they're the ones that are helping us grow. We're taking the money that we're making, we're giving back to the environment, giving back to the community.
Yeah, they're all local nonprofits that we partnership with, and we kind of, there's one that we're donating to every year, and that's kind of a unique partnership.
Food Forward.
Yeah.
Food Forward's a really interesting one. They rescue food that would normally go to waste in warehousing, distribution outlets, farmers markets, and people's backyards. They donate that food to food banks and support people that are in need of fresh food, vegetables, fruits.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're cool people with a passion for giving back, and like just looking at the food sort of distribution system and saying, why is there so much waste? Like, how do we, fix that, and how do we get it to people who need it the most, right? I think for us, the importance is that there's a way to win at business while also doing good, because capitalism is kind of like a bad word in some instances.
Yeah, for sure.
And because we're not beholden to anyone, there's no shareholders, and there's no
there's no other investors.
There's no other investors. We can kind of do the things that I think matter the most to us, and also, impact the world in a way that's important for our son. And we try to do both. We try to balance it.
Speaking of son, how do you make family and business work for you?
Oh my gosh.
What do you think? I know being married and working together.
Well, there's plenty of beer involved.
Right. What do you think some of the advantages are?
Well, I grew up in a family-owned business, and my parents were our family-owned business. My grandparents had a family-owned business. My brother and his wife had a family-owned business. So all I really know is sharing everything.
Right.
At the end of the day, when he comes home, I know 80% of the stresses that he's encountered throughout the day. There's no surprise that not feeling good, or he had to deal with all these different problems. I already know
what happened at the office today. There's none of that.
Yeah, right.
What'd you do about so and so?
But it definitely becomes. It's all encompassing, right? Like we always joke that our son is the third member on the board because he's always in the middle of all the conversations. He has he's 10 years old and he has opinions, and he's hearing about employee issues or financial decisions or equipment, malfunctions or whatever. He's like, he fully hears all of it. We don't censor in front of him, and we let him be, absorbing it, because most likely at some point he's gonna end up owning his own business with his wife too, probably.
Right. He's already being bred for it. Why not?
Right.
We create like a singular narrative together. There's not like him and his buddies at the office and me and my friends at the office, and we sort of don't have a shared story. We have this singular narrative that is like a beautiful thread that ties us together.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think we've always worked well together, and our work doesn't overlap all that much, except when it comes to leadership decision making.
Right.
But I basically manage production and make sure the beer is awesome, and sort of run primary on the creative process when it comes to what we're brewing, what's coming next. And then Laurie is the heart of the business. She's the sales and marketing. She is the warm taproom presence, and she sort of leads the way on telling our story and how our taproom, our retail staff, engages with the customer and sort of brings people into our brand.
We have really different skill sets, and I think that's what makes us the most compatible. Is that lack of overlap. There's no like, I could do that better than you. It's really nice that we are able to contribute from different sides of the same coin, and then come together and create a singular product.
So on that, actually, I had a next question for you. It's what qualities do you think that you both possess that make you good owners?
He's the brains and I'm the heart. So, I'm really the people person.
Right.
I love storytelling. I love telling our story to consumers. I love hearing customer stories. I like bringing them into a fold. I like being part of something big. I like creating a sense of investment or loyalty or love for what we've done, because I have so much pride in the product that we've created and so much pride in what Porter has done over the years that it's really easy for me to sell him. It's really easy for me to sell his beer. It's really easy for me to be super proud of what we've created. And I think that's a huge benefit, because on Porter's side, he's not really as comfortable saying my beer is great. I've done a really good job.
Well, it can always be better, right? I mean,
exactly.
Of course.
And so I'm
perfectionist.
Exactly. There's a need for a creative person who's more scientific, cerebral, engineering, technical, to have somebody who can say, at the end of the day, all that work you put into it has created something really great.
Right.
And
let's
that's
tell
what I
people
bring.
about it.
Yeah, let's tell everybody. And I love stories. I grew up in a storytelling family, and so that's one of the biggest assets that I bring, is really bringing people into Smog and making them feel like they're part of, or showing them that they're part of our family. Giving them that I don't know, community feel and the heart and the love for something that's just a business. At the end of the day, it's sort of what Porter was saying. It's like, it's still capitalism. We're still a for-profit business, but we have a real and true and genuine investment in our customers.
Right. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, for us, it's not about the destination; it's the ride.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like life. And so I want to look back and be proud of what we did, and not just because we have a pile of money in the bank. Like, you can't.
Which we don't.
After this, we're not going to have much left.
Yeah. It's gonna be tough.
But really, I mean, you can't take it with you. So, you might as well create joy along the way.
Right. And how do you go about promoting your business? What are like your strategies for marketing and getting your name out there?
We rely pretty heavily on Instagram and newsletters. So we have multiple Instagram feeds, but the number one is at Smog City Beer. And we use that to tell stories about our processes, to share our new beers that are coming out. This has been an interesting time because we're trying to find a balance between the honest challenges of COVID-19 with not creating too dark a story and giving people hope and optimism. They're not coming to us to make them cry. Right. They're coming to us to be like, link arms and we're all in this together. And I'm going to have a beer that I can forget that I'm locked in my house. So there's been a bit of a shift in our Instagram feel. Same with our newsletters. I also have a WordPress blog that I used to write a lot of. So a lot of our history is in that.
It's awesome.
And then just having conversations with people like you, there's nothing better than when Porter and I are able to work together and just share our story back and forth, to really tell the narrative and to share how genuinely invested we are in our brand, in our customers, and in the industry.
Right. So I know it can take a lot of mental toll, especially now with everything that's going on. How important is a mental break from all this for both of you? And how do you go about taking those?
Well, we've already been fantasizing about our vacation post-COVID. We're trying to decide.
As many people have, yes. As many people have.
It's almost like it's a both positive and depressing conversation to have because you don't know when that will happen. But
2022. Maybe.
So we have, over the last 3 years, we've taken one really great long trip together with our kid and sometimes our friends, sometimes our family, where we were able to fully disconnect from the company. We have warned our employees that we're going to check in periodically, but that if the place burns down, call the insurance company. Don't call us. It's
Right.
it's just like, it is so important to have that opportunity to reset. And we find that when we're in those vacations, when we're away from the brewery, that's when a lot of creative and innovative things come up. When we are relaxed from the day-to-day rigmarole of, scheduling and production and issues and fixing stuff, your brain gets clouded.
But what are we doing now for our mental breaks? We're not really.
I have a really large garden at my neighbor's house. So I go down
Awesome.
in the garden. That's where I get my reset. It's the place I can go, and it's quiet. There's nobody there, and I can just watch the plants grow, and it gives me hope that there is a future. It's hard right now to remember that there will be a time when we look back on this. And so I go down there and I look at my plants and I watch them grow, and I think, like, someday I'm going to be harvesting these plants, and it's going to be hopefully post.
It's going to be different.
Post it's going to be different.
And what about you, John? Anything that you?
I don't know. Today's my first day off since March 13th, the Friday the 13th. So it's good not to worry about what's happening at the brewery. No one else is there.
Right.
Today's a down day. We're on a pretty skeleton crew.
Okay.
But we've actually had a lot of on days in the last week. So today it's good. I don't worry about what's going on there. I got a lot of good guys that take care of the place. So
our employees are so invested that they really do treat the brewery like a business, like their own business.
Like
they
awesome.
love the product. They love Smog. They're proud of what they do. And they when they go in, they look at it like their own.
I think I take little breaks. I come home. I love to cook. I cook dinner with my wife. I have a beer. We watch a movie. It's very relaxing, and I don't worry about what's going to come the next day, because I know, it's going to be different. It's going to be hard. But
right.
the first week was really hard because we changed. Every day was like a new announcement, and we're like, okay, how do we adapt to this? How do we change? How do we get into this like new normal?
Almost like a puzzle every single day, though.
Every day.
I'm sure you experienced that too.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, in different ways, yeah. I mean, it was almost like new information coming out every day of, okay, we're going to go this route now, and we're going to do this, and we're going to help. Like, oh my God. I'm like, just tell me what I got to do. When I come into work, just tell me what I have to do. But it was emails every day, like, hey, we're going to handle things this way now. No, we're going to do things this way. No, I'm like, oh my God.
There's a lot of information overload.
Right.
You're trying to suss out like what's real information and what's not real information, and what really needs to happen right now, and what's going to come in general in a normal life cycle. You're still always trying to predict where the market is going, trying to predict what the customers need, trying to predict what regulations will change.
Right.
And so now it's just in this really distilled period where everything's changing day after day after day, and it's exhausting, but it's also, to some degree, like, it's really invigorating because it's all new. And it's like all the rules that existed before have been completely thrown out. It's a complete reset. Like, I feel stressed, but I also feel excited because I get to ask all these questions that had answers before, but now they don't.
Right.
And I think that's kind of cool,
Yeah, I think it's kind of great. We're creatures of habit, of course, but I think, like now people are being, stuck at home, and it's like, you know what? Try and figure out something new that you like that you didn't like before, or dig deeper than just, I'm bored and I can't wait to get out and I'm antsy, and I try to
you sound like my son. I'm bored, and then he doesn't do anything about it. It's like, you gotta get creative.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
but that's also why we started those virtual happy hours.
Right.
Was that
awesome.
That was a creative solution to a problem. We said, well, people are sitting at home. They can't come to the tap room. The whole point of the tap room is community. Why don't we do a happy hour where people can come together?
Yeah.
And they can do it safely.
And they all can see each other. And so there's a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, my friend was like, are you going to do a speaker view so that they can't see each other? I'm like, no, that's the exact opposite point. I want them all to see each other. I want them to feel that relaxed atmosphere of a tap room where they're connecting with people, not just me, but each other, in a space that's safe.
And you're doing that through Zoom?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we do it every Thursday at 6 p.m.
It's beautiful. Besides, obviously, the whole COVID situation, what do you think in the last 5 years has been the biggest lesson or change that you've learned from?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is the proliferation of breweries in the country. I think a lot of breweries, especially older, more established ones, struggle to be relevant, especially when there's a lot of like new kids on the block doing flashy things and putting stuff in beer that may or may not belong there.
Right.
Breakfast cereal, just saying.
I've seen this before.
Apple pie.
Yeah, to each his own. But I think, one of our challenges was, trying to stay true to who we are, and not jump on the trends or, if if it was a fad or whatever, too quickly. And, a lot of people talk about quality when it comes to beer, but I'm not sure a lot of people understand that quality is consistency, and it is the ability to communicate what quality is to the consumer. I think as an industry, we've done a really good job saying like, oh, craft beer is better than big macro beer because, we don't use junk and we don't whatever, and it has more flavor. Right. But I think we've done a really poor job in telling the consumer what good craft beer is. And I think one of the hardest parts for me, we continue to make the highest quality product that we are capable of doing. And I think that we're, an industry leader out here in Los Angeles, one of being relevant, but also
true to self.
True to self, and right. Being able to educate customers. It's like, I don't want to say that my neighbor's not making good beer because he sells twice as much of that brand than I do. But I also know, like, when there's flaws, like the customers don't understand it because that person may or may not be educating the consumer. And I have no problems with any other breweries. It's just that I want us all to be making great beer, and I want the consumers to understand what that is. There's
a lot of noise out there too. There's a lot of people say, why don't you do it this way? Everybody else is doing it that way. Why aren't you? Why aren't you? Why aren't you? And Porter and I have to be pretty confident in the decisions we make to stand up to those questions, to say, we put beer in bottles because of the quality concerns we had, because we knew that this would be shelf stable. This is beer that's going to get into your hands the best quality it possibly can, even though cans are clearly king right now and just taking off. Yeah. Super popular, and people are just after us. Why aren't you making a hazy beer? Everybody's making a hazy beer. And we're like, we are not saying we won't make a hazy beer. We're going to make it when we know we can make it the best hazy beer that we possibly make, which we did. It takes a long time to make those decisions, to make sure you do them thoughtfully and do them in a way that is a good reflection of your brand. There's a lot of like question when people are always on you about why you didn't put your beer in cans. You doubt yourself. Or when they say, why aren't you making hazies yet? You doubt yourself. But at the end of the day, I feel very proud of the decisions we've made at the timelines we've made them. And we learn from those experiences. We take steps back and we say, all right, well, I think the bottling line and the canning line are great examples. We bought the bottling line. A year later, it arrived. And in that year, can took off. That wasn't our fault. It just was, right?
Right.
We bought a canning line. And now our entire nation is shut down. We didn't do that. That's not our fault. So, it's these decisions that you make and you stand by them and then you make the best of them. Over 9 years, we've made a lot of decisions. We're constantly changing, constantly growing. But at the end of the day, I feel very proud of the choices we've made. So I think that's like the biggest one for me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a marathon. It ain't a sprint. So you got to make sure, over the long run, you got to make the right choices. You can't just, hey, this sounds good. Let's do this right now.
You can be a schizophrenic business. It's like you need to have focus and direction.
Right. Of course. If you had somebody come to you and ask you for some advice on opening their own brewery, what advice would you give them?
We actually get a lot of people that ask for advice for opening their own brewery.
On Monday, I did an interview with a guy in Alabama.
Really?
Not kidding.
I think what is so, I just want to make a comment. I think what is so funny about people who want to open their own brewery that come to me for advice, I can always tell how much experience they have by the questions that they ask. because they don't seem to ask the right question. They want the answers, and I can give you the answers, but I'm like, but you're not asking the right questions.
The one I got on Monday was, what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah.
There's no typical days.
Like, yeah, I'm like, that's, first off, that won't help you, and secondly, there's no typical day. So,
right.
I think professional experience is really important. Yeah. I think the number one thing is how to make great beer consistently, and I think it requires an attention to detail. It requires a significant investment in quality equipment. That quality is kind of negotiable on some scale, or
but not
some
if you
fronts,
don't have experience.
But not if you don't have experience.
Yeah.
Right. And I will tell you the number one flaws I find in breweries' beers, or in beer that's not good, especially from smaller producers, is fermentation flaws. Managing fermentation is the number one thing. Keeping your yeast healthy and managing your fermentation properly is the one thing that nobody teaches you. Nobody even taught me in 7 years before we opened our own brewery, and I didn't know how to do it. But once we figured that out, our beer got better, our costs went down, and it took a significant amount of time and investment in equipment, and we dumped a lot of beer because it just wasn't up to our standards. Right. But without experience in a brewery and the ability to manage fermentation, I mean, and that's just beer quality. Right. Forget the business side. There's a million things. Yeah, my recommendation is always work for a brewery, go to school for business, right, and make sure you actually want to make this your job. Because if you want to have weekends or nights or vacations or peace of mind, if you like stability, this is not for you, right? If you like to know what money you're going to have next week, this is not for you. If if there's all these different questions you have to ask yourself, at the end of the day, you have to decide, do I like to make beer because I like to hang out with my friends, or do I want to make this a business? Because even as, our master brewer, he is only now, because of this crisis, brewing again. He spends most of his time managing people, solving problems, negotiating contracts, fixing equipment. It's like, that's not why most people get into beer. They usually get in because they homebrew, they love beer, they have this great experience hanging out with their buddies. Their buddies say you should open a brewery, and then boom, they open a brewery, and then they never brew again, and they never hang out with their friends. Or they brew, and then they're like, oh my God, I got to brew, and I don't have time to do this and that and the other thing.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, that's what happens. It's hard. So you have to be a real business person at heart, and you have to be willing to live in a life of uncertainty and live in a life in which you never get to shut off. We talk about the business when we're going to bed, and we talk about it when we're cooking, and we talk about it in the morning, and we talk about it at work. And it's like, it's constant. It's in your life all the time. Right.
It's an all-day affair.
All the time.
So, did you happen to have a funny story for us?
There was that one video that we made early on when I tried to pour, instead of putting sugar in the kettle for a Belgian strong ale, I was like, no, let's add it once fermentation starts, because I don't want fermentation to stall. So I opened the top, and the fermentation was already ripping, and I started pouring the cane sugar in, which is typically used in Belgian golden strong ales. These tiny sugar particles basically became nucleation points, and there was a ton of CO2 in solution. So I'm on top of the tank, and my brewer is there, and I'm like, oh no, dude, here it comes. And I try to put the lid on, and it's like geysering out. And in the video, he backs up, and you can hear him laughing, and he hits a keg, and there were glasses on it, and the glasses fell over and smashed on the ground. And I'm still trying to get this geyser of beer to stop and put the cap on the tank itself and get it all wrapped up. It was ridiculous.
This is disaster.
Disaster. I don't know how much of that beer we lost, but most of it, I think.
Good Lord.
Everybody was just laughing the whole time. Yeah. And I'm literally sitting on top of the tank with the thing shooting up, and it's like 2 or 3 feet high.
Those
Sounds
are
dangerous.
Sad.
Yeah, I would say kind of dangerous, but then, you laugh about it, right?
But luckily he's the owner, so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like.
Nobody's gonna retaliate.
No, we could have just let it just pee all over the floor or something. It would have. The worst thing would have happened is we just spilled beer.
Right. I have this a little segment called Quick Fire 5. I've never had two people do it, but I guess I can get an answer from each of you.
We could alternate.
Yeah, well, either one. I can get an answer from both of you. It's just 5 quick questions, quick answer.
Whatever comes to our mind.
Yeah, whatever comes to mind. Ready?
All right. Try it.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody comes into your tap room. What's the one beer you recommend they try?
Pilsner.
Coffee porter.
Favorite brewery other than your own?
Sierra Nevada.
The same answer.
Yeah,
I knew I had to
really?
say it so I could beat him.
It's fine. Hey, it's personal. Favorite style of beer?
Probably porters. Dark beers.
Pilsner.
Last beer you drank that blew you away?
I'm trying to think. I've had a lot of other beers. Go ahead.
Can it be like so mine is the last beer I had that I wish I had right now during the Safer at Home is Celebration from Sierra Nevada.
I've had that.
It's a seasonal beer that comes out in December.
In
We
December.
literally look forward to it. We track it down in any grocery store and we buy it by the case.
It's very good.
So I really think it's a perfect beer. So and I miss it. I actually told him the other day that I wished we had Celebration while we were stuck at home.
Something to celebrate.
To celebrate, yeah.
To celebrate.
I'm gonna say we just moved our cold box from a smaller box to a bigger one, and we pulled out all of our old vintage beers. And I found a beer called that we made a long time ago called Saison Contraire. And it was we used to make a flagship Saison when we first started, and this was one of our first versions where we took our flagship Saison and spiked it with Brettanomyces. And I found one case, and it is drinking amazing. I was so surprised.
Yeah.
I was like, "This beer, what? We still have this?"
That's awesome.
And it blew me away. And then I was like, "Oh, this is gold. This is gold.
Yeah.
Put it into inventory. It's gonna be we might just drink it. I don't know.
What a find! What a find! And such a great time to have it." And last question I have. But you have one keg of beer to hold you over for a 2-week quarantine. What beer would you be choosing?
Coffee porter for me, though. Yeah.
Coffee porter? Okay.
Yeah. Coffee, chocolate, alcohol, low ABV. It's perfect. Perfect.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think I need IPA because
IPA.
I need, if it's 2 weeks and it's only one beer, I think I need a little more alcohol, and I get cravings for hops. I mean, Pilsners are great. I think it's my favorite style, but like when it comes to like hops, I gotta have them every so often, otherwise I can't.
Any specific IPA?
Well, I mean, we happen to have some of the best IPA in Los Angeles.
There we go.
You know what I'm saying? We're not hurting for quality beer over here.
Well, one of the interesting things that happens when you you own a brewery is that you kind of like tune your palate to your own beers.
Right.
And so you really love them, right? Like they're comfortable. You recognize them. You're proud of them.
And become a standard.
Yeah. And so when I drink other people's beer, I kind of like, even if it's a great beer, I still kind of miss my beer. Like my beer's like a comfortable blanket, or my favorite packet. And so even if I maybe found a beer that I liked more than it, I would always want to come back to that comfortable place.
True. I mean, I could grab an IPA from our buddies at El Segundo Brewing here, or our friends down in Beechwood, and be just as happy.
Yeah.
Well, that is all I have for you guys today.
Well, we want to say thank you to you as a fireman and a frontliner.
Thank you very much.
During this time, you are doing your part as well. We're providing the libations, but you're providing the safety. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah.
And what are you going to tell us what you were drinking?
I was drinking a.
Was it IPA?
It was an IPA. It was an all-day IPA.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
That Founders?
Yes, Founders. I love Founders. Yeah, I'm a big Founders fan. I like this stuff.
Yeah. Funny side story on All Day IPA. We came up with that name like 6 months before they released that beer.
You're like, no.
And we didn't do it. We didn't release the beer name, and then came out with it. We were like, no, it's the best name.
And then we're like, oh, we're gonna do it. Let's go check the trademark. And we're like, what? Founders has an all day IPA?
Yeah.
Must be a one off. And then they did like a $10 million expansion to make, to flood the world with all day IPA.
We were so sad. It's such a great name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And it is something you can drink all day, especially in the summer. It's beautiful.
Yeah, especially in quarantine.
That's true. That's true. Well,
awesome. Thank you.
Yes, John, Laurie, thank you for being with me. I'm Mike Curtin for Chew Brewer Stew. Thank you, guys. Hey guys, so that was the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're able to take something away from that interview as you will with every interview. Special thanks again goes out to Laurie and Jonathan Porter of Smog City Brewing Company in Torrance, California. If you're on lockdown during this quarantine and you're in California, stop by Smog City's tap room for a quick pickup or check out their webpage for links to get beer delivered straight to your front door. Every other Sunday I'll be posting a new podcast, so stay tuned and like I said, subscribe, and you'll never miss another episode. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. Also, Sunday, June 7th, Chew Brewer Stew's name will officially be changed to the Brew World Order Podcast. I'm Mike Curtin for Chew Brewer Stew. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.